Good morning or good day to everyone. I'm Butley and I'm here with Patch. How do you do today, Patch?
Good morning, Butley. I am doing pretty good. Yourself?
I'm well. We are back playing Tactics Ogre. Everyone might not notice because we don't upload in sync with when we record. I'm pretty bad at that. That's my bad. Sorry. But
Oh yeah, it's all his fault. I'm completely innocent of all
Patch
crimes
is
here.
always available, always ready, and always harassing me to do this. I'm the worst. Blame Butley. Hashtag. It's been like a month or two. What do you mean? I'd love to be the focus of a hashtag. That's how I become internet famous these days, right?
Hashtag blame Butley. Alright, gonna use that one in the future when we're super famous.
Oh, isn't that a frightening thought? We get video that is actually famous and somebody has trudged through all our Tactics Ogre videos and brings that up. Oh dear. Yeah, so the point is, it's been a couple of months actually since we recorded, so what do you do?
But that's okay, because you're just watching them back to back and watching us train right now.
Yeah, you might not notice.
Yeah, you're all up to date.
Yeah, and the training videos, so you're not really missing anything in terms of the story.
Yeah.
Maybe
you just like to watch the gameplay.
I do. I think it's cool. Still enjoy it.
Yeah.
I actually,
think it's
in the last 2 months, since we haven't really been recording, I actually started playing another file, just not because I want to do different story elements or anything, just because I like training different types of characters.
Yeah, I'd say that's the game's strength. I can sort of appreciate it. I'm not a huge, this gameplay I like in like a distant tangential sort of way where I can appreciate what it is and the customization and all that, but I don't think I'd actually enjoy it as much.
Right.
Mostly because of, I like big sprawling battles, and customizing your team is nice, but
I guess the way to look at it as
a
tactical game like this isn't uncommon with the the turn-based, grid-based combat and multiple characters and that. There's not heaps, but there's a good chunk of games like this.
Yeah.
But in this one, you have so much really effective, really interesting customization. So if you like those kind of games, or these kind of games, I suppose, like this is probably right up there.
Yeah, these idiots on the low ground doing jack right now.
This map, so some of these, because these are all in the Wildwood, some of these maps, I play them the same every time. And this one is basically, you put your knights at the bottom because they have rampart aura, and people can't get past.
Yeah.
So you create that chokehold, and then you put your archers on the hill and shoot them. That's it. It's so dodgy, but I figure it's basically grinding, so whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. So Budley, did we have a conversation topic today?
No, I don't have anything.
I just tricked you because I have the topic.
Yeah, it's a trick question. We did actually kind of almost plan where we're going with this. Maybe.
Thought I'd ask you and throw you off filter.
I don't have any topics. Nothing interesting's happening in the world. What the hell?
Nothing at all. So, I have an interesting conversation topic.
Interesting being subjective, but sure, go on.
It is very subjective.
This sounds controversial.
It's politics.
Oh no, abort.
Yeah, I wanted to break from one of our cardinal rules of no politics to talk about politics.
Oh, no. This is the worst.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty awful what I'm talking about, actually. Specifically, it's all about all this, sort of the state of things, and nations and whatnot, and how just sometimes there's no, justification to go to war. You just sort of, invade, and then you liberate people that don't want it. And it's like, everyone's meant to join up into this one big nation, and then the game ends, but the Quickslufferin keep, fucking insulting us. Sorry, I swore. That's also a cardinal rule we're breaking.
Ever since you came back, you've just been ruining our whole YouTube
I know,
policy.
and it's like I'm trying to tech up in my frickin' mass drivers, but everyone else is getting lasers, and it's just really dumb. And we joined a federation, and I can't use my ships with your ships because I've got wormhole travel and you've got hyperspace travel.
We have an alliance.
Anyway,
we can't.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say politics are really stupid.
At least in a Stellaris world.
Yes, we've been playing Stellaris lately.
Butley,
myself, and Hobbles.
Playing is definitely a generous way of putting it. We've been turning on Stellaris and
We've been
running the
participating.
game for a few hours, and apparently getting dumped on by the late game bosses that we had no idea existed.
Yeah, so we played a couple of practice games, Butley, myself, and Hobbles, and then we decided to play one for serious, and we'd go to the end. And yeah, it turns out the game, it's a paradox grand strategy game. That's what you can say about it. And if you like that, then congratulations.
If you liked the other
if you have
ones,
problems
you're
with that,
going to like Stellaris because it has all the, it does the same dance.
but fact of the matter is the game has no depth. Like it's really shallow. We hit a point in the game where we three had formed a federation, and all we were doing was going around declaring war on whoever we thought we couldn't win against, basically, and trying to vassalize them. It was the only interesting way that anything would happen. And then one of the end game events happened, which it literally just spawned some 1.5 million or more troops. We actually think it was probably more troops
I
than
think
that,
we could only see
because we
1.5
killed
million because we
heaps.
shredded them and they still have
Yeah,
heaps.
and then dropped that straight on top of Hobbles. And at the time, our federation, which consisted of us three, had a combined fleet of around 200,000, maybe more, which I thought was a pretty amazing fleet at the
Definitely
time.
bigger
when
than
this
any
1.5 million
other
dropped.
conglomeration of teams in the game.
Yeah, we were the biggest there. And then the event dropped and they just sort of steamrolled us. I mean, eventually steamrolled us. We beat them in a bunch of battles, and then
It became
eventually just the fact that
kind
they
of
had,
an attrition war, and we weren't ready for it
Yeah.
at all.
which, to be fair, was the most fun time we had in the game, because we were actually challenged to battle,
Right.
you know? We were running our fleets around, constantly trying to, like, pick off exposed parts of their army, while, you know, keeping ours alive, keeping all our group together, which was hard because, again, I had wormhole travel and you guys had hyperspace, which meant I had to jump to a specific point and then jump back out, while those guys could just go to nearby places. And it really made
The
it
point
quite...
is that when you have wormhole travel, you need the warp gates to get anywhere.
Yeah,
because we didn't have
you need a
wormhole travel,
wormhole.
we didn't have any of those, so we couldn't basically move his ships at all. So
Yeah.
since you're all
So-
building ships to add to the Federation, like Armada, well, we basically couldn't, like, when Patch added them, we couldn't use them, so it kind of really, it made our
Yeah.
Federation almost, like, not pointless, but
Pointless.
considering you're
Well,
even
I-
giving up your
I'd
own
say
personal
pointless.
ship cabin
Yeah.
to put into the Federation, yeah, excuse me, you end up really short, so it's disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And I was also wanted to say that we had a lot of vassals at this time, especially like we had just recently conquered a really big vassal without destroying his like 50k fleet. We'd sort of just, he was in like a war, and we picked his allies off and we got all our war score up that way, and then we basically vassalized him without touching his
It's
army.
kinda silly
which meant
on
that would
its
have
own,
been-
but that's
Yep.
a different story.
Yeah, but that's like a 50,000 fleet we could have had helping us. But it didn't count as a war, the entire thing, because it was just some sort of like an event, which meant none of our vassals contributed their forces. And we had some 6 or 8 vassals at that point, plus that really big guy, you know? Like across the 3 of us, we'd captured quite a lot. And so it was really disappointing that the game sort of ended on a really, like, it was fun, so none of us complained, but it was sort of also a sour note, because it highlighted just how poorly designed the game is. There was just
Bittersweet.
massive gaps. Yeah,
I guess
it was sort of like if they designed it a little better, it would have been a little bit more fun.
it's a tough one. Like, I think that, like, describes the whole game. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but you know, how long you'll enjoy it is kind of results may vary.
Yeah, it's very, I don't know, because we found this sort of like a general thing that there's always stuff to do, and it's always, you can always keep active, but at the end of the day, the gameplay definitely falls short in what experience it's providing. Like, it's just not enough.
It's hard to.
Oh, hey, skill rank up.
I'm having trouble really, like. God, how do you describe? The problem is like,
Well,
the things I would say,
wanna-
I feel like I wouldn't make a lot of sense without describing the game more.
Yeah, well, why don't we? Why don't we go into some of the things that we found wrong with the game? Like, I don't know, where do you want to start? Because combat is a great point to start on, but it's also one of the main gripes I would say I have with the game.
Well, what if
So-
let's say that, in general, this is sort of how a Stellaris game probably goes, and
How a Paradox game probably goes, if I suspect you're going on the same train as I'm
maybe.
thinking.
So early game, it's well, no, because the other Paradox games play different.
Have pre-built
Right.
empires, yeah.
So when you're playing like EU4, it gets away with it because it has historical zones and things you can do based on history and also based on like where you are and where you start and where you go. So in Stellaris, it's 4x space, and so you start off in space, but you don't start like sharing borders and things like that. And the way it plays out, it's kind of like a land grab early on. You're just trying to expand
Yeah,
as
get as
best
much as you can.
and just basically, it's not interesting. There's little mini side missions and quests, and you have to scout things, and you have to make decisions based on your tech and where you're going and what you're doing and all that. Like, it's not boring and it's not uninteresting, but it's not as interactive. It takes like, I mean, it can take a couple of hours to even find people, right? That's one thing we found recently.
Yeah, it's in the game we started another game, and I've been really active in that game, but I wanted to play like a conqueror, and I didn't find anyone for an exceptional amount of time. I was just sort of sitting there, sending my ships out, which was kind of a disappointment, because yeah, I wanted to conquer, I wanted to go out and fight, I wanted to play that aggressive style of game, and I didn't get that opportunity because of how the game plays.
Early game, it's a bit of a land grab. Oh yeah, you're seeing here. I'm trying to win the fights, obviously, without wasting all this money on blessing stones.
Yeah.
That's like the constant struggle, because you're trying to train your you're trying to take not optimal characters, not your best characters, to train them, and it just gets expensive. So you need to make sure you're getting more. That's why I go out of my way to pick up all these sacks, because you get more loot that way, and it's the only way to justify spending blessing stones is when you've got all this extra money. I mean, I could just let characters like faint because you get 3 lives, but then I risk being in a situation later where I don't have that option.
Yeah.
I don't like, especially not in just random training. I'd rather like quit the whole battle than let someone die, to be honest.
Yeah.
So early game Stellaris is a bit of a land grab. You're optimizing, you do mini quests, you meet random pirates.
You're getting
and
resources.
stuff, like,
you're capturing some planets, colonizing planets.
It's fine, but it's very single player. And then
and you're mostly just setting up.
Mid-game, which is the long part, it's really awkward. So you will interact, and the AI do tend to declare war and stuff if they think they've got an advantage. So you do need to be on your toes. But once you've sort of got on top of it, it's I don't know. It's like it's really awkward.
Once you're big enough and you have some allies, then that's it. You basically don't get in any fights anymore because it's too much of a challenge for the AI. The AI is really bad at combat, which is something that is just Paradox grand strategy games. The AI doesn't know how to combat properly.
Well, it has the same problem of you just make one big fleet, and you either have the bigger fleet or
and
you don't.
Slap together.
And then you play the cat and mouse thing where you just chase their big fleet until you fight it.
Yeah, we'll get into that when we talk about combat. The bigger fleet wins thing.
So the mid game is sort of like you take the bully mentality where you get the biggest friends and you just go and pick off the smaller guys one at a time until you get to a point where you've got 2 or 3 big groups of bullies via Federation or defensive packs or whatever, and then we had a huge long stalemate where we probably couldn't win for a while because there was just big groups, and it was like, well, to fight this
3 people in particular that were just too strong, and they're all defensive packed together, So picking a fight with one of them would mean picking a fight with all three. And while we could take one, maybe two of them, the three of them together would have been too much against us three, even with what vassals we had. So the idea was we were picking up people around us to build up our strength before we fought them.
And
so that was our
and then
mid game.
The late game. So if the early game is sort of turtling, but not turtling, but rushing to optimize and get off the blocks quickest, it's land grabs, and then the mid game is basically stalemate. You do like minor wars that aren't that significant. You definitely put some races out of the picture, but it's mostly stalemate.
Sorry, I just need to point out that's Derek the
Derek
Ninja.
Yep. The Ninja. I don't know why I'm checking all these guys. Probably just weapons to see who's
in
ranged.
case anyone's got something
It
scary.
might just be to see who's ranged. Like if those guys at the top are ranged, I have to go get them. Whereas if they're melee ninjas, I can just wait down here until they come to me.
Yeah, and poke them with shooty things.
I always forget that people don't know what I'm thinking.
There we go. What dart gun?
Yeah, so he's not too bad because he's on lower ground. I can just stay up here and wait till he gets near and then shoot him. But the higher ground guys will shoot you from back there. So yeah, mid game in Stellaris is stalemate-y. You get stuck. I'm not saying all the time, but you definitely you're 100% are going to hit parts where you just can't declare war because of all these packs and the way it's state of the land, and that's fine. But it's so easy to do.
Well, here's the thing: is a lot of criticisms towards grand strategy Paradox grand strategy games, is that they're map painters. They're not like strategy games. They're about coloring the map your color, basically, because there isn't a lot of challenge in there. There's just more of a know when to hold them, know when to fold them sort of thing. Like when to fight and when to not fight. And the Stellaris is sort of the same in that regard. Like your goal is ultimately to paint the map with your color, or vassalize everyone, or form a really big federation. That's how you win the game. But it puts caps on your ability to expand.
Well, this is the thing. Let me finish what I was going
sort
through,
of.
and we'll swing back to that.
Oh yeah, sure.
This is the point. So late game, so you sort of once you go through the stalemate-y sort of, I'm trying to out-tech you, optimize everything, and just be generally better. Woo, spears. Once you do that, you get to the late game, which is like we got to, where you're just picking people off. Now, you might say, oh, well, I don't know why I'm... Oh, I know exactly why I'm throwing rocks at him.
Trying to cap him?
He's a ninja, yay. That's probably why I was looking at him earlier. And then I
sod
it. I might have just thrown rocks at him because I didn't want to move, or I might not have been able to get in melee range. I don't know.
Because you hate ninjas.
Freaking ninjas, man. So once you've done all that sort of boring stuff, then... Well, it's not boring, some interesting, but then you get into this sort of, okay, now we know the lay of the land, we know who we can fight, who we can't fight, it's time to just pick people off. And you just sort of, it's like systematically doing it. But the problem is, and this is the thing, like you were getting to, there's a cap on how many planets you can hold, and there's a cap on how many sectors you can run. Yeah, you can get small buffs to improve it here and there, but considering the game has actual win conditions that are like own 60% of the map, well, you're never gonna have a cap big enough to hold.
Not until the way late game, where you can just tech that up slowly.
I'm not even sure you can.
Infinitely.
I don't think it has infinite techs.
Oh, there is, well, maybe not infinite, but I know you can get more and more core sectors.
I'm not sure that's infinite. I think there's a set number of those you can research.
Maybe.
Anyway. So you get to this point where, like you say, you're taking on vassals because you can't get your own planets, and it just gets really sort of... You feel like you're fighting over the game mechanics rather than actually like expanding naturally your empire or something.
And this has been a problem in a lot of Paradox Grand Strategy games, as I mentioned, where it's almost like they don't want you to do the thing that they're known for, which is painting the map, so to speak. All the games seem to play that way, where you're trying to take as much land as possible, because the main thing you can do in these games is combat. And they keep implementing these features to like hinder your ability to do that. Whether it's like how well you can manage lots of sectors, or you get rivals, or you have to have a demence, like things like that, that really limit your ability to grow and conquer and hold territory. And most of the other games, they don't completely limit you. Like, you can keep going without being hindered too much. You just have to compromise in some way. But in Stellaris, once you've hit your sector cap and your core sector cap, your core planet cap or whatever, that's basically it. If you go beyond that, you start getting really punished hard. And it's an arbitrary limit, because why is my empire not able to hold more planets?
Right,
you know?
why,
like, there's no
why
sort
when
of
we break into
logic
space
to
travel
it.
at the start of the game, why are we only allowed 3 planets? Like, what race would say, oh, we've got space travel and we need to create new colonies? Why would they say, oh, we can only handle 3? It just doesn't make much sense. The whole problem with like this, and the reason the narrative was important, is you got to understand is, the big question in Stellaris is, what do you want to do and why? And because here's the thing, when you play something like EU4 or CK2, they have bits of history, they have bits of like proper land, and it's really, there's a lot of really easy ways to basically make goals for yourself. So it's like, I want to go and spread my religion. I want to go and
participate in the
I want to
Crusades.
create this empire. Yeah, I want to go on a crusade.
I want to reform
I
Rome.
want to win the crusade and take back these areas, or I want to, like, you know, there's a whole bunch of things that you might want to do, and
I want to reconquista Spain.
And if it's things like, I want to win the crusade, well, you might need to say, well, I need to win some of these battles to get more land or more soldiers or more territory. I need to win some minor battles against the Muslims before the Christians crusade against the Muslims. You know, things like that. Like, there's lots of little things that you can do to, and that all creates, and that's, like, again, Paradox doesn't say you have to do this, it just puts these things in the game, and it's up to you to decide which ones you want to do. In Stellaris, though, it doesn't have anything like that. Like, it's sort of 4X, but
there's no
4X
real mechanics.
Yeah, and so you're not really, like, is the sort of thing. So there's 9 planet types. Well, there's 10, but 9 habitable planet types usually, and so each race will have a certain type. So whether it's like an ocean world or a continental or a dry world or whatever. And so chances are you're not even fighting over the same planets or sectors as your enemies. So you basically just almost passive-aggressively expand, like, around without ever fighting. And it's like, you don't...
I agree.
In EU4, for example, you fight over specific land because of what it gives you access to, or how prosperous it is, or what...
Yeah, if you don't have access to the water, you might take a coastbound province so you can have access to the water and transport troops around.
They'll have different, like, income or trade viability or things like that. So you fight over things. In Stellaris, there's none of that.
You just sort of take the 2 or 3 planets the game offers you that are good, and then you terraform a couple more that aren't as good.
And I get that,
and that's what you end up with.
It's like, it's more 4X-y than the grand strategy ones that EU4 and that are, but it just doesn't give you enough reason to do it.
But at the same time, it's not 4X-y, because a 4X game wouldn't limit you.
The thing.
A 4X game would say go nuts.
Yeah, and this is the weird part.
That's what 4X games are about.
They turn around and say, well, here's something to do. We'll give you these, you know, I use this phrase all the time, but they give you these arbitrary win conditions, like own 60% of the map, or defeat 80% of the races, and you're like, well, okay, wait, alright, fine, let's do that. And then they go, oh, but you can only have 10 planets. And you're like, well, this thing has like 100 planets. How am I supposed to conquer 60% of the map with only 10 of them if I can't cap the others?
Worth noting, there is a game that I can compare this to. I haven't actually played it personally. I haven't seen it personally, but I've heard other people talk about it and its similarities, so to speak, to this kind of thing. And I believe it's called Distant Worlds. It's another grand strategy space game. Obviously, it doesn't have graphics quite as shiny, but in it, each team has win conditions that are unique to them, so to speak. They might not be like 100% unique, but they're not all the same. and they all might be different things. Like one team might be, okay, you need to establish the greatest trade network. That's how you win the game as that team. And so the game for each team is balanced around that team's strengths and flaws and how they play. And Stellaris is missing that. Stellaris's aspect is you have 3 ways to win. All of them involve being the biggest military power in the world, either by alliance or land grab. And then that's it. Like, there is no choice you have but to get a giant military force as a group, either through a federation or just by whatever. But that's what I mean.
Even on its own, that's not too bad. It's just then they seem to be, like you said, they make it harder to actually do those things because they create these arbitrary rules that you can't break.
And then if you look at another 4X game with set win conditions, say Civilizations, well, you've got a combat victory, you've got a domination victory of owning the most land, you've got a diplomatic victory where you form a giant federation, or everyone agrees you win or whatever, and then you've got like a cultural victory, you've got a science victory. There's different means and ways and tools to achieve a victory at the end of the game. And there's different ways to interact with that. There's cultural pressure to push people, away with tourism and things, like to force them out of what they're trying to do. Or you can go and fight them with your military. You can drop a nuke on someone's head, You can take city-states in Civs 5 and 6 to deny people, sort of diplomatic rights. You can do religious wars in 6. And it's that sort of... I'm not saying that I think it's an exceptional game, Civs 5 and 6, but there's options. There's ways to play around the mechanics in the game that are rewarding and interesting, and, let the player be creative and play how they want to. In Stellaris, every team ends up playing basically the same, with some minor differences, like very minor differences usually.
Yeah, I don't mind the variety in the variety in the races, but you're right, like, it doesn't change the style of game you play. You might attack differently, or you might build different ships, or you might have a different sort of management level of your planets or your economy or whatever, but yeah, there's nothing in there inherently that, I hate this charming. Ah!
Yeah.
It's counterattack
that's
charming,
why I made
it's the worst.
Earlier.
I figured out how to solve it, except he blocked my damn... If I'd have shot him, it would have broke the charm, but he blocked it.
Yeah, I know.
It's so annoying. So it has stuff, but it just doesn't... Like, I guess the thing is, we lost to the ancient race at the end, and...
Which wasn't like we lost to an AI, that was just a spawned event, dropped a massive number of troops.
We didn't lose like a 50-50 battle against someone. We lost a, like you say, a late game event. Which is fine. The thing is, like, how long do you think it took us to get there? Like, in terms of hours, it was quite a lot.
Well, we played on 1 speed, and I have, some 60 odd hours in the game? Let me just check. I can actually check that right now. I've got 43 hours in it, so 30 hours would have been easily just us playing. That would have been 30 hours basically of us.
It's cool to have a 30-hour, like, it was 30-hour multiplayer game, nothing wrong with that, but then it's like, well, okay, so we're going to invest another 30 hours. Like, what are we going to do different? How are we going to change how we play to make sure that we get better? So we don't...
Yeah, make sure that doesn't happen
again. And the answer is,
and there's no real option.
Just be more efficient and do the same thing? Like, well, I don't know, we started again and I still haven't figured that out.
Well, the answer is just be more aggressive and conquer more territory. Like,
but then you get into the same situation where you get bottlenecked by not being able to own more sectors, not being able to own more planets, and just having vassals. Well,
here's the thing. I didn't have any sectors. I only had my core planets. Because that's how I wanted to... I didn't know what I was doing, really. I was still just trying to figure out how to play. And I was happy with that. And all the AIs I captured, instead of integrating them, I just, kept them as vassals. And I was happy with that too. But if I wanted to play again, I was worried about this, game-ending event happening, I would go and take 1,000,000 sectors, and
But
you
the
know,
answer's
I'd
still the same,
expend
though.
all of my
All we're
resources.
doing is being more efficient, doing exactly the same, but
Oh, yeah,
more
yeah.
efficiently,
Yeah.
and it's not going to change the style. It's not like, oh, we didn't build our planets right, or we didn't focus on this tech path because you need that, or, it just didn't really change that. It just,
No.
it's just going to be more, it's an efficiency thing. And I get that being a strategy game, efficiency is part of it, and I enjoy that part of it as well. That's not a problem. But yeah, it just doesn't give you enough like meat. And
Yeah.
and again, on its own, that's not the biggest problem. Like some 4X games are like that, but then the other thing we say beyond that is that then you need like things to do.
Good other
You need
things.
things to do in between, yeah. Something
Yeah.
to kill your time, and that's where the game starts lacking as well.
Well, I guess we'll save the meat of it for the next video we do, episode 50. We'll come to episode 50 to see Patch go off at Stellaris.
Yeah, because this is
Patch loses it, episode
this
50.
is the timid version of Patch. He's only
Yeah,
got positive things to say.
Because I think we'll go into the comparison, more of a comparison, specifically to the one game that is very similar to Stellaris. And we'll talk about, I don't know, I feel like we should talk about the goods and the bads, but we should also talk about the combat, because that's a big part of Stellaris. And as we've talked about, I think in the past, grand strategy games, Paradox ones, why they fail, is they're combat games at heart, and the combat is always very shallow. It's not engaging. So I think we'll do that for the next video, eh?
Yeah, that takes more time. That's my little indicator when I go to the save screen. That's my indicator that we're nearly done. Yeah, the video is like 2 minutes long. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, we usually talk quite a bit if we get caught up in a conversation, so...
That's alright. Anyway, I guess we will probably leave it at that then, and we will reconvene to talk about Stellaris on another video.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning back in. You guys probably won't notice a difference, but it's been a while off for us. I don't know if that makes our equipment, our speaking, or our general attitude better or worse, but it is what it is. Thanks for your time, and yeah, we will talk to you later.
See ya.